looking for a thumbs up, but I'm not getting one. Thank you. All right, everyone, welcome to the Thursday, June 5th meeting of the City Council Business and Community Affairs Committee. Today we have one item on our agenda, and that is a discussion regarding shopping carts throughout the city of Norman. And I believe the staff has a presentation for us, so if that is the case, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So I'm Shannon Stevenson, I'm the Assistant City Manager, and today I'm happy to say that I've also got Lieutenant Lee McWhorter here, who's with our Police Community Outreach, and he's also with our Proactive Community Engagement Group. So we'll be co-presenting. We don't necessarily have a ton of slides for you guys today, but we did want to give you an update. We were here, or I was here, I believe it was December, and gave you guys an update on sort of what the city has been doing, trying to minimize the impact of shopping carts or abandoned shopping carts within the city. We've had numerous meetings with our businesses, with our chamber, and businesses with the chamber, to really kind of try to figure out the best path forward on trying to, again, minimize that impact, but also trying to be compassionate for those individuals that choose to go down that path of utilizing a shopping cart. So first of all, I just want to do a very quick reminder. The reason that this is important is because it really does have an impact on our city resources. Essentially, every department within the city is impacted by either shopping carts that should not be in areas that they are, or shopping carts that have been abandoned. And so, I mean, we've got every department from law enforcement, our traffic, our utilities, our action center gets the phone calls, our parks department often will have to go retrieve carts from the parks. Sometimes they get caught in our stormwater, and that becomes very costly when we have to go out and have a consultant or a contractor retrieve those for us, because we're not able to do that with our resources. So it's very costly to the city. So this is why it's an important issue that we need to try to at least have a little bit of control over. Wanted to quickly run through some of the recent activity that we've had. We'll just go out and say it. About 90% of the carts that we see that are the issue, whether they've got items in there or they have been abandoned, actually go with the largest retailer, and of course it's going to be Walmart. So we've really worked very closely with Walmart over the last 6 months to try to at least develop either better communication or a better plan on trying to contain their carts within their lots, as well as trying to have a quicker response of when we do. And so I'm happy to report that we really do have a better communication. I know that Lieutenant McWhorter almost talks to our Walmart rep almost weekly. And so what happens is typically they do have a contractor on standby to go retrieve carts when we call or report them that they're either blocking an intersection or in a location that they shouldn't be, or they're off their lot. And so it will depend on how quickly they can come in to retrieve those versus how critical of the location is it. If it's in, let's say, an intersection, we're not going to be able to wait very long for them to get that. So that's where then we're going to have to deploy our resources to go pick that up. So basically what it boils down to is who can get to the cart the fastest. And so we prefer to put that, of course, that resources back on Walmart and their contractor to do it. But if they're not able to do it in a timely manner, then that's when our staff will kick in. As a result of some of the conversations that we've had with Walmart, they have agreed to start adding signs to all of the carts in Norman. And so basically, they will be tagging every one of their shopping carts with a sign, and I'll show that in just a second, that basically says this is the property of Walmart and it's at this store. It will have an address, so we'll actually know what store the cart goes to. And they might have started already installing those signs on some of the carts either this week or starting next week. So you'll start to see those as you visit those locations. As I mentioned, we've had a couple of meetings with the Chamber of Commerce and Scott Martin and his businesses, again, trying to address carts as well as just the impacts of the unhoused overall. But a lot of it does also deal with some of the shopping carts. Some of the enhanced efforts that we've had here at the city in the last 6 months, I'm happy to report that we do have now a very active, proactive community engagement, or PACE team, under the direction of Lieutenant McWhorter, and I'll let him talk a little bit about that in our next slides. And again, just trying to have a more holistic approach And, cause before I think we were all like somebody, Parks might get the phone call and they would just kind of go take care of it themselves, or, utilities might get it. So now we try to at least, make sure that we're all aware of the phone calls coming in related to the shopping carts. And so that, and again, trying to make sure who would be the best or the most appropriate response. And sometimes it is Parks for them to go out and get it. Sometimes you guys might be actually, or the, police department might be the ones that are involved with this. So, it's sort of, we're just, again, trying to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually, before we go further, I wanted to go back a slide. Lieutenant McWhorter, can you maybe talk about that one particular slide on, or the photo in the upper left corner? Was that one individual?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one guy.
And so, and I think you had moved them from one location to another, and then if I'm not mistaken, this is an individual that might have eventually gotten.
He was in an alley over near in the Reed area. That was a problem. There were several folks there that had set up a camp, but he had about 10 carts that were all full of stuff. We went out for a week. We took outreach out with us. We told everybody, hey, this needs to move. And we explained to them why. We told them the ordinance that went along with that, and we gave them, we say, hey, this is Monday. We went out every day and told them, hey, you got until Friday to move because sanitation's gonna come out with us and we're gonna clean this up on Friday. So everybody moved, including this gentleman, but he moved over directly in front of Food and Shelter with all that stuff. So we just kind of displaced that problem a little bit. So what ended up happening with him is he actually went to the emergency room and was inpatient at the hospital for a while. And we talked to him and we booked all that stuff in. So you'll see those pictures here in a little bit. So all his belongings were taken. We returned the cars to Walmart.
That's okay.
Question about the mental health aspect. So is this personal belongings, or are we talking about a little bit hoarding and just picking things up? Like Big Trash Day was just recent. A thing we did, so I could see. I mean, I've had yard signs picked up when it was my time to run, and they're like, "Oh, we see your yard sign going down the street with someone."
Yeah, a little bit of both. Mostly it's a lot of it. When we see folks with 10, it's generally kind of a hoarding concept. It's obviously these people don't have a home, and so you're talking about all different kinds of weather that they're exposed to. So people keep coats and tarps and cool clothes, warm clothes, and so they pick up whatever they think might be useful and they throw it in this cart and it's their stuff. So again, where you see it is it multiplies, and this particular gentleman swears that like, oh, well, I'm watching this one and this one for somebody else too. So those 2 aren't mine, but these 8 are, and so it's just kind of a balance.
Yeah.
So I'll let you talk a little bit about your PACE team.
So we've had a PACE unit for a while now. We have our proactive crime enforcement section. We recently added 2 folks a couple of months ago that started doing proactive community engagement. And the purpose of that is to build relationships and to try to work a problem from a holistic angle. Specifically, those folks go out and they are very plugged into our city resources, our nonprofits, and so they go out and make contact. When we have somebody like the gentleman that we just spoke about, contact him, hey, what's the deal? We can't stay here. Can we pare it down a little bit? Can we work through some things? We'll call community resources out. Specifically, we usually use Kara Fitz from Community Outreach from COCMH. We'll come out and help them move things. And that's not only just in front of Food Shelter, that's wherever. We had a couple that was evicted yesterday that county basically locked out. It was an eviction thing, and they were sleeping on the sidewalk in front of their apartment. So the police got called for a trespassing call, but in response to that, I also called Kara, and Kara went down and helped them. So we discussed, hey, they don't want you on the property anymore, so you can't be here, but here's Kara, and Kara helped them get a storage unit and move their stuff and do that side of things. So we're trying to pair resources. We're trying to, because before, well, obviously we're police officers, so we can enforce the law. So we go down, if there's nothing to enforce, then we leave. If there is something to enforce, we can, if we need to. So we're trying to kind of balance out giving people the help that the city provides, but that we see sometimes that they don't. Because obviously those people aren't going into an office and saying, I need help right now, because they're dealing with the situation. So we can kind of plug in those resources.
I appreciate you saying that. I just want to bring up one thing real quick. I hear a lot in the public about, these people are, the individuals taking these carts off property, they're breaking the law. So why can't we just arrest them and make the problem go away? And I'm of the mind that this is not a problem that you can just arrest your way out of, that there's no amount of people that you can lock up. This is going to continue to be an issue. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
So it's multifaceted. So essentially, the property itself is Walmart's property. To enact, basically, that's petty larceny because those carts are not worth $1,000. So that's petty larceny, and that's a crime that is not committed in my presence. You have possession of a cart, but I didn't witness you steal it. So I can't cite you just for possession of a cart as it stands right now. So Walmart would have to want to press that charge. And to this point, we have not had a lot of cooperation with Walmart in wanting to do that for a variety of reasons from their side, I'm sure. So what we've kind of looked at is how do we address that? Because we understand some people visually it's a problem. Some people it's intimidating to watch somebody push a big hoard of stuff down a sidewalk and they're like, what's in there and what? I get all that. From the other side of that, that's someone's stuff. They don't have anything else and you got to move your stuff. And again, if it's going to rain one day and then be 90 the next day, because we live in Oklahoma and that's entirely possible, I want to be prepped for both. Where do I keep that stuff? Well, I pile it in something with wheels so I can move it. So again, by necessity, they're nomadic people.
Right.
So we're trying to balance from a police department side. We try to balance what we can enforce, and trying to bring. I mean, we are humans too. We understand that piece.
Yeah.
So I understand Scott in the business community's environment. I understand the mom that's walking down the street with her kids or near the park with her kids, and that's intimidating and scary because those people have a variety of issues and things that they're dealing with. So we're trying to take all that into account and how we address the situation.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, from my perspective, there's an extreme level of nuance in this, and people want to treat it as a black and white issue, but it's thickly gray, and there's no black and white to it. So appreciate you saying that.
Lieutenant, can you go through those photos and describe what those photos?
So top right, that was the issue that we were having essentially with somebody like the gentleman we talked about before. We were lining up carts in that grassy area. Essentially, they were told that was city easement, and so they could park there because Food and Shelter did not own it. That's in front of Food and Shelter. I'll just throw it out there. So that's in front of Food and Shelter. We got a lot of complaints on that, and they're like, "Why can't you guys do anything?" Well, the area around Food and Shelter is state property, so I can't enforce there. That would be a county issue. The property of Food and Shelter itself is their property. That's private property. They can enforce it. And so what they're doing is trying to skirt that by going in the right of way. We did talk to City Legal, and that is something Food and Shelter can enforce going all the way back. They maintain that area. It is city easement, but in front of their property specifically. So what happened is we came and we addressed that, and so they just moved down the street between Food and Shelter and Main Street on Reed and did the same thing. So what we did is we went and we just talked to people and said, "Hey, look, we can't be here. This is still city property. We're going to need to move." And so the second picture down that you see, that's the gentleman that we talked about that had the 10 carts. They were sitting there. They didn't move. Somebody said, "Hey, that guy is in the hospital." So we said, "Okay, we're going to take all his stuff and we're going to bag it up. We'll book it into property custody. We'll give him a case number so when he gets out, if he wants to go claim it all, he can." So it took, I want to say it was like 24, 26 contractor garbage bags, and filled that entire trailer up. And then that whole line of carts behind you is all the carts that he had with him. So we returned those to Walmart. We took his stuff and it was booked into our property section. And then this is a couple of days later, after some repeated attempts at just educating people saying, "Hey, we can't be here," asking them to move. I don't believe we wrote a single citation to clean that up. We didn't have to because, again, it was just a matter of going back and repeatedly being like, "Hey, Food and Shelter was kind enough to kind of crack down. They've put up some trespassing signs. They're open until 4. And so they've asked that people not be on their property after 4 for a variety of safety reasons with the people in the cottages and things of that nature. So Food and Shelter's been very cooperative about trying to, because they realize the optics of that particular set of problems too. So that's where we are post enforcement and engagement.
Do we know if that property was ever reclaimed?
I don't know if he claimed it or not. He's got 90 days.
Okay, so my next
yeah.
question was gonna be that. Yeah.
Wait, is it 90 days after he gets out of the hospital or 90 days since it's been put in?
In 90 days since basically when we book it in, he has 90 days to claim it. And he's out. I know that for a fact.
Okay, so it's not like he's an inpatient getting
Right,
stabilized for a
and
few months.
if that were the case, we'd have no problems holding it if that's what he wanted. He could easily make a phone call on that, and you'll see I've kind of worked through that problem a little bit. If you'll go to the next one, scoot one more for me. So on the bottom here, we created basically a form that has the case number for if we take someone's property. It also has a place at the bottom that gives property custody's phone number, their email, and the times in which they're open in which you can make an appointment. So it gives the ability, like, this is where you get your stuff back. So you know exactly where to go, exactly what times you can do that. And so you can call them, if he were to go, we'd give him that kind of quote unquote receipt, and he would have the ability to call and say, hey, I'm in the hospital, I can't come get my stuff, but I do want it, we could hold it.
We'll go back.
So going back for the Walmart cart signage, so again, we spoke to Walmart, and the issue that we have is that their intent is that their cart stays on their property. And it's to be used for the moving of groceries and their products back and forth to cars, and it's not supposed to leave their lot. So what they're going to do is they're going to install the following signs. So each cart at every Walmart will give the address of the Walmart it belongs to, and we'll have this that says, hey, this is a violation. If you look at municipal code 24501, interference with property use, essentially, if you take the property of someone else and you're using it for something that it was not authorized for, that's a citable offense. So again, this is it's a misdemeanor. It would be a cite and release. But what we would do in enforcement of this would be we'd write the person a ticket. We would take the cart, and then we'd have to walk through what they want to do with their belongings. And if you'll scoot forward. So we have three options essentially. If they don't want it, if they say, well, most of it's trash and I don't want it, I want to deal with it, we would have them sign an affidavit of non-ownership that just says we're relinquishing the ability that this is not mine. I don't want it. We're done. And we'd probably throw what we need to away. Second option would be like, hey, I want certain things. Some of it you can trash, some of it you can't. So we have purchased some property custody has purchased some of these totes above, like you see at Lowe's, so we can take their stuff out one by one with them so that they can see that we're packaging your stuff, and we'll leave it in that tote, put their name on it, put the case number on it. That'll be booked into property custody. They can come get it whenever they need to. We'll give them that receipt that I discussed. And then third would be, hey, if you want to keep everything, or if you just want to pare it down, you can pare it down. We can take the cart and throw away whatever once, and you can walk away with whatever you do want.
So this applies to people seen taking the shopping cart off premise, not people who are already in the community. Like they could say, oh, well, I found this abandoned here and I took it.
So that would be the difference with the added sign, because the sign clearly says this is property of Walmart and says which Walmart it belongs to. So
Let's say you find an empty cart by one of the schools and you're homeless and you're like, I'm gonna add that to my train. That signage still applies, so they can be cited?
correct.
Okay.
If the cart has the sign.
If the cart has the sign.
Yeah.
So, correction, you don't need the signage. I don't think you need the signage. I think the signage helps us determine who to take it back to. But I think that you have there's enough information without the signage being there. Like, you kind of know generally it's Walmart. I think we have authorization from Walmart corporate, so it would apply to all Walmarts. But I want to make that clarification too, because even if someone were to, for example, take off that sign, we'd still be able to enforce it. And regardless of whether or not they were seen taking it off the property.
And I guess my other question is, because I don't really think arresting or citing, I mean, it's nice to have that mechanism, but I would say more opportunities for storage of stuff would make a lot more sense before it becomes to the level of now you're dealing with the police to get your stuff back, if that makes any sense. You know, like some of these people have traumas, and I appreciate that the
Yeah.
police team is working to make those connections with people. But I'm just thinking about a woman who actually passed away in 2023 who was, and I've seen her have multiple contacts with the cops on Main Street, but she was definitely one of those people that I don't think you could have a conversation with.
Right.
So, yeah, I just think about the spectrum of people with issues.
No, I agree. I'll be honest with you. To me, this seems like, and there's and we may hit this in just a second as far as the education component, but we have been discussing with the community, the unhoused community, that this is probably coming. We've discussed it with Food and Shelter. We've discussed it with COCMH, with Salvation Army, with those partners who would probably provide something different.
Like City Care too.
Yes, so all of them are aware that it's coming. We will also probably, we will start a social media campaign so that everybody's kind of aware that this is coming, and this is, because it's not just, I mean, you could find a shopping cart down the road and be like, hey, this would be really awesome to help me move plants back and forth from my house. You can't do that either.
Yeah, same.
So it's all encompassing. I'm not trying to pick on a set of people. But again, so advertising that for probably a month and a half, 6 weeks, and then we wouldn't enforce it until August 1st. Again, the other thing about it is it's not built to be a punitive, angry first attempt at anybody that we see walking down the street. We're going to jump out and write a citation. This is really to deal with the 10 carts, the ones that are a problem that are near drainage areas. So it's, I don't want to say last resort, but it's a way to solve a recurring problem that we haven't been able to solve in other ways. And we're really trying to do it in other ways.
Yeah,
Still
and-
going, or-
sure.
Okay, just to ask, so when talking with the partners like Salvation Army, Food and Shelter, COCMHC, City Care, would these other entities I know some of them will store, like if you're at City Care
Yeah.
and you're staying there. But will like Food and Shelter or maybe other entities consider having storage for people that are maybe their clients but don't get to stay with them because capacity is limited?
That would be a question for them.
Okay, so that hasn't come up yet.
It's been talked about. Several problems with that. Just one of the ones that we've experienced from the police department side is bugs and rodents.
Right.
So we've had to readdress our policy about we don't book in food anymore, specifically because it caused a lot of issues that had to be addressed within our property custody section. So I don't know that anybody has the facility right now or the space in which to say, hey, we'll store this for an extended period of time. I like the idea. I'll be honest with you, I did a lot of research, called a lot of different organizations and agencies around. For example, I talked to Denver, and Denver, the city of Denver bought an old school, and they partner with a third-party company who they pay. They call them, they come, they package up all the stuff right where it's at, they cart it off to the school, they book it in, they give them a receipt, and they say, if you wanna come pick it up, this is where you do it. But again, you're talking third party, and they have an entire school that they have the ability to, I don't know that anybody has the space for that right now, or the ability. But it was something that was thought through for sure, which is kind of where we came up with the totes, hoping that at least that would give something that's waterproof, something that's containable, we can stack. Obviously, you have the 90 days, and we're not talking about something that's your choice. If you want us to take it, we can. If you want to take it with you, we'll help you facilitate that however we need to as well. Again, just trying to find that balance.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's that last point that I want to give you guys kudos on. I know it's a really complex issue without a clear solution, but I appreciate you guys finding the humanity in the whole thing. I mean, these are people, and they deserve to be treated like humans, just like everybody else. So, I mean, you got a lot of positive for me on that. Councilman Holman.
Yeah, on that same note, just I'd want to make sure that like compliance is the goal for them not to be taken, or if someone's approached because they have them and they're told they have to give them up, and they're like, yeah, take them. Like, I don't want somebody to get a citation for this and then they don't show up at court and then they have a warrant, and then it escalates from there to a whole thing over a shopping cart. And so And you're saying that's not like the
That's-
default?
No,
It's
that's
like,
not the goal.
if an officer walks up to him, it's automatically gonna be a ticket,
Correct.
and then we're gonna take them, and you get the 3 options,
Right.
but it's more, here's your options,
And that'll be an
and if you
internal training
don't, then
too,
we're
so
gonna cite you.
just so I'm clear on that. That'll be an internal training within,
Okay.
as we roll this out, we're not only educating the public, we'll educate internally too. Like this is not I see a cart, I walk over, I cite the person, I steal their stuff and run off with their cart. Like this is not the intent on that. It's to fix like Assistant City Manager says, it's the ability to really fix a problem that we are struggling with parks and with stormwater and some of these massive complaints that we get.
So I do want to give Lieutenant McWhorter a shout out as well, because really he and his team, they live and see it every single day. I don't always necessarily am in this every single day as I'm doing other things, but he and his group, I mean, and they have come to management with all sorts of ideas and options, and he's the one that actually researched this Portland Loo that I think we've had some conversations about. So they've done a fantastic job, and I just can't sing the praises. And then built the relationships with Walmart to even get to the signage and all of this. So
Agreed.
really hats off for him and his crew. So.
Keep with the good
And the
work.
PACE team, if you guys haven't met them yet, they're incredible. So I think at any point, if you want to meet the guys that are out on the street every day, really addressing this particular population, they're really compassionate, and they're not what I think oftentimes when we talk about law enforcement and the unhoused, it's usually a confrontational, and by no means is that. I mean, they've really engaged, again, all of these other partner agencies to really address some of the issues that they may be facing in the mental health crisis and all of that. So they've done a great job.
Sounds like we got the right people for the job,
Yeah.
and that's half the battle right there. So, Councilmember Graham.
Yeah, and I appreciate working with that couple that was trespassing and calling Kara. And in that vein, just again, thinking about the spectrum of mental health, is the PACE team going to team up when they recognize it's a mental health situation? Like, and is Kara the only person y'all call on, or are there
So-
other?
As far as outreach goes, Kara is basically outreach in Norman.
Is it 24/7, 365 for her?
A lot of times, you'd be surprised. She will answer the phone and help you with whatever she can, whenever she can. That said, there are plenty of other resources that we also call upon. Specifically, you're asking about mental health, and I can go down a rabbit hole with that. But we have partnered. We signed an MOU with COCMA, the Community Mental Health through the state, and we were working with Mobile Crisis to divert some of those calls that come through 911 that don't have a criminal nexus, that are not a danger to themselves or others, straight to mobile response, where we don't go at all, because those are the people who deal with mental health. So that process has started. It's kind of in its infancy right now, but we've had some really good results when we have used them.
So you could see future situations with carts. Maybe you're encountering somebody like the lady I'm thinking of that she's sadly passed, but schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorders,
Yeah.
things where it's like, are we having the same conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for those folks, that would be a great one to call Mobile Crisis out for. I mean, Mobile Crisis is staffed 24/7.
The carts are the tip off, but the
Yes,
solution is multifaceted.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Nash.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of clarify for myself, the changes that we're making here, now we're able to cite the individuals for having the shopping carts on public property?
Yes. Well, off Walmart, it would be off Walmart property, and they're essentially at this point, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it would mostly be Walmart is the conversation we've had. I think if I can identify, obviously red ones are from Target, and if you have 10 of those, I can express that those belong to Target. So again, it would be, I'm gonna default to you on that
Yeah,
one,
that's
but go ahead.
So, I mean, essentially, it's kind of an enforcement decision in a way. I think we've kind of looked at it from the perspective of, larceny historically, and then, that provided its own difficulties in enforcing it due to the way that, the interaction between city ordinances and state law. I think then at this point, we've gotten to the stage where now we're looking at other ways, I think, to view that enforcement. And this is kind of, that particular ordinance is already existing. It does fit, and it fits well, I think. It's just, it's one of the ones that sometimes the more interesting problems, usually that's the one we rely on if we need to. It seems to capture some of the more nuanced situations, and I think that is kind of where we're getting at here. So it's not technically, like a theft or a larceny type ordinance, so we are kind of looking outside of that typical historical approach, and that's kind of why we've shifted it to this one. It still fits, it's just not historically what you would have used in enforcement.
All right. See, I like the idea of the citation going to the offender versus issuing citations to the businesses to penalize them for their stolen property. Although it makes sense why we would go to Walmart if they're not able to keep track of their own inventory. But I think I've suggested in the past ordinance to prohibit shopping carts on public rights of way because it becomes a safety hazard, especially on sidewalks. When you have a shopping cart, especially if you have more than one, blocking the entire sidewalk. And you keep mentioning 10. Is there a particular threshold, like 10 before this will be?
We haven't established one,
Okay.
no. I honestly, it's, to me, I think probably your best course of action is what you can be mobile with, like
Yeah.
at one time. So if you can push two at one time, fantastic. If
You can get to
yeah,
the top of Mount Everest with one shopping cart worth of equipment. So
yeah,
having 10, I understand that is their mobile home. Now they're nomadic. They're not that nomadic. I've never seen a shopping cart train going down the interstate. And so I wouldn't consider these like family heirlooms. That said, I'm glad that we're finally getting on the path to doing something about these shopping carts that are, aside from the safety hazard being obstructing sidewalks and then them ending up in our stormwater drainage that costs tens of thousands of dollars to fix. As you've discovered when confiscating it, there's also a health hazard breeding inside of these shopping carts. And I'm sympathetic for the situation, sympathetic for the safety aspect also. And citing the individuals, there is an argument to be made that, well, they're unhoused. How are they going to pay? What if they just don't show up? And all this, but we can look at other cities that have done similar ordinances in the past and had a lot of success. It's not so much that issuing a citation isn't going to reverse that incident from occurring. But that's not the intent. The intent is to incentivize, to try to prevent further incidences from happening in the future. And as it's a persuasive argument to be made that if I'm looking at a fine, I'm less likely to steal another shopping cart and fill it with political signs and tarps. And so I think the negative impact is actually going to be minimal on the in that population, just simply because you guys aren't going out and issuing a citation on the first offense or the first time you see it, and there's a lot of steps going up there, but them simply knowing that there is a consequence and that it is something that's being monitored and that's not permitted, because I would walk out there with giving everybody the benefit of the doubt that the first time you encounter any individual, it's assumed that they had no idea that was even an ordinance. But once they know, then they know, and and then the problem should start to decrease from what we've been seeing here in the past. I'm a little disturbed that Food and Shelter won't allow shopping carts on their property, but they think that, but then we become the bad guys if we talk about prohibiting them from ours.
They do allow shopping carts during business hours.
Oh.
Like people can bring their stuff. What they're saying is they can't be left there and you also can't essentially live there.
Okay, so they're implying that people don't exist with stuff outside of business hours. That's, whatever. Food and shelter is their own thing. But, we still have to keep an eye on the, you can't argue that there's not a safety aspect to this and a health aspect to this. And we need to make sure that we can keep our sidewalks and our streets in our city safe and healthy, so that everyone can be good tax-paying citizens to keep the system alive. You said that there's a couple of people added to a team to go out and retrieve the carts.
So we have a kind of a twofold response to that. Initially, I think with the rollout, when we get them, we'll take care of them as a police department. We'll probably load up and take them back to Walmart. Walmart does have a response team that essentially I can text that guy and drop him a pin of where they are. Sometimes that response is faster than others. It just kind of depends on, but that's one of the things we're working with Walmart is how often they pick their shopping carts from outside and bring them in, how often they take sweeps and can help us out. So that's one of the pieces we're working through. But generally speaking, I've been sending like piles of carts. There was one on Main Street for an extended period of time. That was one of the first pictures. I sent that to them, dropped the pin, and they were gone within a day. So Walmart came and picked those up. They do subcontract with an agency that will come pick those up.
Now, of course, not an option before is like, us dumping out the stuff that's in the carts, just returning them to Walmart with the stuff in the carts, letting Walmart decide whether they want to hold on to that or not, just from an excruciatingly neutral point of view. We don't necessarily know that isn't Walmart's property inside of Walmart's property. So, but yeah, that's just that would just be a kind of diversion of blame of who's the bad guys that are disposing of the contents of these shopping carts after they're removed. That individual with Walmart, that team, that's a citywide Walmart sort of retrieval?
Yes. Well, Walmart has, I'll be honest with you, I just know the guy's name.
Okay.
His name is, he's a regional.
Yeah, he's a regional
okay.
manager for like South Central Oklahoma, but he picks up, or we can text or call him pretty much anytime. And then they've got a contractor here within Norman that specifically is doing all the stores for Norman.
Okay, just make sure it wasn't like just attached to, say, the west side of Walmart or something like that.
No, it's all the
It's through
Walmarts,
Walmart.
yeah.
Has Walmart had any, I know that this isn't the first city or their first stores to encounter this kind of issue. Have they been very helpful offering ideas of how they've addressed it in other municipalities?
Well, so they basically have said, like if the city happens to pass an ordinance that requires businesses to have a containment system, similar to like what Homeland has, to where it would be locking if it goes off its geofence essentially, they're gonna comply with city ordinance. And so, but they're, they prefer not to, they wouldn't be happy about it, so to speak. So, but then of course, if we did go down that path, obviously that's gonna impact other businesses as well. And so then it's sort of a little bit of the snowball. So we've really been trying to maybe avoid going to that level simply because they have been cooperative and they have been really kind of meeting us in the middle on like, okay, well, how about if we had these signs? And then, okay, yes, we will enforce, or I feel like they signed an agreement maybe, or maybe they hadn't quite yet. Okay, we were working on if we needed to, what was it, the trespassing or not trespassing?
No,
but
it's
the-
just signing something that says the express purpose of our card is basically what they put on the sign. So,
So that's where I think the potential next steps, I mean, we can certainly start to explore that more. So this is where we were looking for feedback from you guys today on, okay, where do we want to go from here? And so this was some of the things that we have outlined. I've been working with Lieutenant McWhorter and Anthony Purington on, okay, so here's what we see. It's from our perspective, definitely continue with the pace, engagement in the team, being out there in the community. Continue our education campaign on the signage and what that means as they start to roll those out over the next week or two. If we get your direction on this, then start to begin the cart enforcement with, again, some really caveats, I think some heavy caveats. And just like we were talking about, it wouldn't be the first, like every person we saw with a cart, like, you know what, you're getting a citation. It would be those egregious repeat, you've worked with them 3 or 4 times, type stuff. We're proposing to go back and meet with some of the other large businesses in Norman and say, okay, Walmart is doing this. Can we now get you guys at the table to also do something similar? And then, of course, there was always that, the last time I think I was here, we talked a little bit about some of the other cities don't necessarily have a formal ordinance, but they do ask for businesses to create a cart containment plan. And there's a lot of ways. It doesn't necessarily mean the expensive geofencing of the carts. It could just be they're gonna, ensure that every hour one of their sales associate goes out and collects carts from the parking lot, or make sure all the carts are put up before they close for the night. All of those things that tend to, if they left carts out in the middle of the night, then that tends to be maybe when they walk away mysteriously, things like that. So that was one of the things that we had on here is if you'd like for us to go down that path, because it seems a little bit less, I guess, I think our businesses would be a little bit more open to that. I don't know, Scott, if we're not, having a very hard line ordinance or requiring that they have to geofence all their carts. But we're gonna leave it up to each business. Now, some of them may choose to do that, like Homeland, then theirs would be an easy containment. Okay, they're geofenced. Walmart may propose, okay, we've got these signage on our carts and we're gonna ensure that all of our carts at midnight, whenever we close, I realize some of them may be 24 hours, but, so that's sort of where we're really looking for feedback at this point.
I'd really like to know what some of the other businesses are currently doing to keep the problem at bay, because if Walmart's the one that has the, I don't say the problem offender, but the biggest source of the carts, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Target,
Aldi, I think, has been extremely successful with
the
their
quarter. That's a great, that's a great little thing. I'm just kind of curious, like how they've been able to navigate this in such a way. I guess Sprouts, National Grocery, neither of those are open 24 hours or necessarily late at night, and so that might be the issue. They're just out late at night. But I'd really like to know what everybody else is doing and if that can be replicated somehow. Because I think you're right, leaving it up to each business to kind of try to figure out that's the way to do it, but
I think in this situation, a large part of it has to do with just the availability of the carts for Walmart. We just have a lot of Walmarts and then they have a lot of
per
carts.
capita.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
so it's just a numbers game, I think.
If I remember correctly, and this is like a general, the lady from Walmart asked all their Walmarts, said these are generally how many carts you should have based on, and it was about 3,000 when you add them all up together. But one of them responded to her and said, your number says 650, we counted last night and we have 867. So like, that's just one Walmart. Right. And we have several. So you're talking about a lot of Walmart carts. We see a lot of Dollar General. We've started to see a couple of Ollie's. Those are also red because that threw me a little bit because they're on the east side of town. And I was like, man, somebody walked a real long way with a Target cart. But so those are contacts that we spoke to Ollie's briefly, and they were interested in maybe helping us out with some signage. Walmart is also going to add signs at the exit along with the carts themselves that say, as you leave, hey, this is not to leave our property, and similar wording.
Councilmember Gray.
Several thoughts. So I recall from a previous meeting, we talked about a cart reporting system, and it was Action Line is what I kind of remember, because I do remember a previous slide that said 911 was being called, which seems excessive. but are people using Action Line? Will that be a part of the education for the public? Like, if you see a cart in an intersection, call the Action Line. That way you guys can decide which entity has the resources to go pick it up immediately. Or if they're at school property, the school knows, call the Action Line. And, you know, it's not maybe as hazardous as in an intersection, but you would hope Walmart would send their recovery team to come get it, and we wouldn't have to use city resources. So is that part of the discussion for the education? Okay, great.
Right now, I think we're receiving all forms, like somebody will text Daryl, myself, they'll call. I know you guys get a lot of the calls directly.
We get a lot from the Action Center too.
Yeah, but the Action Center is also
Right,
definitely.
like one point of contact for
Yeah.
that, cause then
Yeah.
you can map out like
Yeah.
how it was addressed.
100%.
Okay, so community service in lieu of fines or doing treatment programs or engaging with services, could that reduce fines if people are fined for any of this?
We do have, it's called a community docket, we've had that for several years now. And I'm anticipating every single one of those will probably come to the community docket where we do have alternative sentencing options. So for example, how that works is, let's say just, for example, $100 fine, and someone's assessed that $100 fine. If they don't have the means or ability to pay it, the court gives them alternatives to pay down that balance, either through community service, engagement with mental health resources, employment and housing resources, substance abuse services. I mean, you name it. If they're engaging with something like that kind of addresses the issues that they're facing on an individual basis, we will give them monetary credit off of their balance.
So in theory, they could pay it down to zero through their engagement with services or
Without
community
paying
service.
a single dollar.
Okay, love to hear that. Then my other questions, I had a question about Salvation Army's cart situation, because I know it's not just food and shelter. What was Salvation Army's situation with carts? How did they address it?
They make people leave
Oh, okay.
in the morning, and if they refuse to, they will call and they will trespass them.
Okay, do carts stay overnight with their clients?
That's a great question. I haven't
Okay.
asked. I mean, I've seen several over there, but I don't generally see as many over there. So I don't know if they bring them in and have belongings stored like City Care does overnight. And because they are Salvation Army and you can generally come back every night, it's a little different.
And then I do like a containment plan for the businesses, just, get them thinking about how they'll address this. And this leads to my last point, which is we're looking for measurable outcomes. So I would think that measurable outcomes could include this year's or the prior years, like how many carts did we have to pull out of channels or drainage ditches, culverts, whatever. Are there other outcomes you guys are measuring for to see like if this is effective before we think about even escalating to a geofence ordinance or whatever?
I guess our hope is that we could look at citation numbers and say, hey, we started and we wrote 37 once we started enforcing, and then after that it steadily went down and down until we rarely write one, would be my personal metric. I know that I have had a conversation with Stormwater, and he gave me a ballpark about how many they pulled out last year.
How many was that?
I want to say in the 30s.
Okay, so you'd want to see that number go down.
But that was him just kind of guessing. But we could definitely
Yeah.
talk to them
So we've
about.
been tracking, like with parks, it's 1 month it may be 20 that they're having to go pick up, the next month it may be 35. So I just didn't put that in there, but I do have like month by month, and it's around 25 to 30 carts a month. And sometimes it may be 20 of them all in a row. Like you get this random, like the ones over on Main Street.
Yeah.
They'll just be 20, I don't know, somebody just took off with 20 carts all stacked together and left them, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be looking to see that number decline with these efforts. And then my other comment is even though we think geofencing is, it's not the golden bullet or whatever, or silver bullet, I'll say that whenever we were doing a neighborhood cleanup, an original town site, somebody had pushed one of the Homeland carts into that neighborhood, and it definitely had the lock on it, and so this goes back to mental health or whatever was going on with that individual, but, you know, there's no
If you're
perfect
motivated, you're
solution here.
motivated, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, just to acknowledge that we're doing all this, but you just gotta leave
There's no perfect
Room.
system, yeah.
for the outliers.
So,
So I got a couple other questions. Now with the, so the officers that are in this, our officers already have a lot on their plate as it is. What is the risk of adding this to their plate to increasing overtime use? And if that's a thing, is there a way that this sort of team could be instead staffed by cheaper, less expensive personnel that could perform the job? Because, you know, we don't need to be sending our prize stallions out there to retrieve shopping carts when we.
I think the overall goal is kind of like Ms. Grant talked about, which is, I think once we start enforcing this, you'll see it drop off. Because it'll be one of those things like you discussed, once there's a consequence for an action, we've established, hey, we will enforce this if we have to, and we start, then we're hoping to see that drop dramatically. Now, what it'll turn to next, who knows? Maybe we have a backpack crisis, I don't know. I've spent a lot more time talking about shopping carts in the last couple of months than I ever thought I would, so who knows what'll be next, and we'll address it as it happens. But I don't expect it to be an all day, every day thing for even the two guys that are doing it. I think we'll have a kind of a rush at first. And I think it's like any other rule that gets established, as people learn and that information gets passed down. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do, that we should be able to. I mean, just like you saw in the pictures with, hey, this was allowed, and then we're saying, hey, no, this is a city easement and you can be cited for this, so you guys need to move this stuff. Repeated all day, every day for a week or two, and then you see the picture where they're all gone.
We had after this initial push, we had to eventually settle on a steady state of should be much lower requirement for going out there and retrieving shopping carts. I just want to kind of keep that in mind. Just be cognizant of don't want to be potentially adding more, increasing the costs to the city any more than we need to. And if there's the chance of that, then we can explore ways that we can do that less expensively.
one of the things I will add that we started to look at is, we received opioid grant funding last year that we are funding the Opportunity Knocks program that Michelle Loudenbach has been leading. There's still some funding available that we have not allocated. We were thinking some of that funding would go for a sobering center, which I think there's still that option. But then recently we've kind of been talking a little bit about like maybe we could engage social workers or even some mental health professionals to go along with a PACE team. And so poor Kara is not always the one that's being called 24/7, and that maybe we've got some other resources to help with this as well. So as we start to explore that and kind of come back with what are we going to do with that remaining money, and then give you guys some options on here's what these will cost and here's the different options that we're thinking that would be applicable. We just need to make sure, of course, it fits within the grant guidelines itself, but I think that's not going to be a hard stretch necessarily if that's the direction we want to go. But I think we have, I don't know, like 650?
I have no idea.
I want to say we have around 600 that's not been allocated yet.
Mhm.
And then we'll get periodic updates from the state for the next, 17 years, I think. So,
It wouldn't hurt to it also consider just like the geofencing and all the other stuff. None of it's going to be the perfect thing, but kind of like the insurance companies, just little things to change the long range statistical average. So like little geofencing, that's not going to stop all of them from being stolen, but that might stop a lot of them from being stolen. And then I think the ideas come up before, like a little short, like 2-foot fence around the Walmart parking lot. Now, and those could serve dual purpose. It was like a little 2-foot chain link fence, because I live down the street from a Walmart, and the trees on the north side of Cedar Lane, you'd think that they were, Walmart bag trees, because all the trees are just full of these little Walmart shopping bags. And it's not uncommon for that entire field to be full of, they've started sending out employees to go and pick up stuff, but it's just part of the game on Walmart that stuff's gonna blow out of their parking lot, and a little tiny fence would, that would catch some of that, would, like I said, dual purpose. But then Councilmember Grant raised an extremely important point on measurable outcomes. Of course, the removal from like stormwater, probably the most objective form, not perfect, beyond a point in time count on shopping carts. That in combination with the citation numbers to be able to not only identify that we're having the desired effect, but also it'll kind of clue us in on when we have reached that sort of steady state. So at that point we can expect, all right, so we've reached that point where this is how it's going to be in terms of enforcement long range, and then take a look at how much, like what kind of burden that is on the officers, and if we need to have some more creative form of staffing to take care of that by itself, because at that point we'll know that it's not going to get easier from here. This is where it's going to be, but we won't be able to know that without those having identified measures and merit ahead of time to be able to keep track of the effectiveness of this policy. I think that concludes all my questions.
All right, well, I think, do you guys have direction that you need from us on this?
I think so. So I think the one outstanding is the working with businesses to propose or develop a cart containment plan and try to get from all of our at least major businesses with shopping carts. Okay.
Yeah, I really like that. I like to get them in the mindset of their own loss prevention.
Yeah, and it wouldn't break my heart if there were different efforts for the different stores. It'd kind of give us an idea like which
What's
efforts
successful?
might have more or less impact when adjusted for that store's cart population.
Okay, well, very good. Well, thank you guys.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the work on this. I know, like I said from the beginning, I know it's a very nuanced subject without a clear answer, but I think we got the right people working on it, so best of luck. Thanks, guys. If there's nothing else, this committee meeting is adjourned.
Another job well done. City saved.
I agree with you, just said.